Everyone saw a slave. The humans saw someone worth saving. The cage was made of light, not a metaphor, actual light. Thin rods of pale blue energy running floor to ceiling in a 3-foot-wide column, and inside it stood a person who looked at me like I was the first living thing in 10 years to see them. I almost kept walking. I was at Vareth Station to pick up a pressure valve and 2 coils of thermal wire. That was it. 40-minute stop, tops. I had a contract run to the drive system that paid better than anything I had seen in 6 months, and I could not afford to be late. But I stopped. My name is Owen Calloway. I am a licensed independent cargo hauler out of the human colony on Ferris 2. I am 34 years old, not especially large, not especially brave, and I have exactly one talent that has kept me alive this long. I notice things other people walk past. The station floor was packed. Beings from maybe 15 different civilizations moved through it like water around stones. The Greth traders with their 6-limbed frames. The tall, silver-skinned Selvani who never made eye contact with anything below their social station. The Drath with their clicking mandibles and their fur-lined cargo sashes. All of them walking, trading, talking, eating. None of them looking at the cages. There were 4 of them along the east wall of the market, between a food vendor and a parts supplier. They were labeled in Galactic Standard script: species, condition rating, labor classification, starting bid, like inventory, like crates of bolts. 3 of the cages held beings I did not recognize. The 4th held a Keth. I knew what a Keth was because Owen Calloway reads, and Owen Calloway had spent 3 weeks on a long haul once with nothing but a database and nowhere to go. The Keth were a people who had lived on a world called Kessa for roughly 40,000 years. They had built libraries. They had written music. They had a tradition of painting with mineral dyes on the inside of caves, and their oldest paintings had been dated at 22,000 years. Their world had been purchased, legally, by a resource extraction company called Vireth Holdings 7 years ago. The sale had gone through a galactic court. The Keth had no standing to object because they had not registered as a protected civilization, which required documentation, and the company had made sure to destroy the documentation before the registration could be submitted. It had been ruled a clerical error. Kessa had been stripped of every mineable resource in under 4 years. What remained of it was a gray ball of rock with no atmosphere. There were fewer than 500 Keth still alive anywhere in the galaxy. The one in the cage was young, probably. I had no real way to judge age in their kind, but something in the way they carried themselves said young. Their skin was deep brown with a faint iridescence at the cheekbones and the backs of their hands, shifting between copper and violet as the light moved. Their eyes were very large and very dark, and pointed directly at me. Not at the crowd, at me. I felt it the way you feel someone grab your shoulder. Physical, direct. The price tag above the cage said the starting bid was 1,200 credits, labor classification. The note beside it said the subject was cooperative, meaning they had stopped fighting. I had a cold feeling in my stomach reading that word. Cooperative. As if surviving was a personality trait to be rated. I stood there for probably 30 seconds before a Drath trader walked into me from behind and made a noise of irritation and went around me. I stepped out of the foot traffic and stood against a support column and tried to think clearly. What I was feeling was not complicated. It was the oldest human response to injustice, which is that the body knows before the brain admits it. My hands were already still. My jaw was already set. Some part of me had already decided. The rational part of my brain was still running the numbers. 1,200 credits was half my operating reserve. Buying a person here was not illegal. It was, in fact, the entire point of this section of the market. I would be handed legal ownership documents. I would have a record attached to my trade license. I would need to provide proof of purpose, labor acquisition. I had no labor to assign anyone to. My ship held one person, me, and barely. None of that mattered. I knew it did not matter. I walked to the trader's booth. The trader was a Greth. He had been selling here for years by the look of him, bored and efficient, with a tablet in 2 of his 6 hands and a beverage in a 3rd. He looked at me the way you look at a mildly interesting weather pattern. Humans were not regular buyers here. We were too new, too small, too emotional, everyone said. Prone to irrational purchase decisions. He probably thought that was exactly what I was about to do. He was right, but not in the way he thought. The Keth, I said in Galactic Standard, pointing. I want the terms. He told me. 1,200 opening, no reserve, one-time sale, no return provision. Transfer of ownership was immediate on payment. Legal title registered to buyer, all health and behavioral documentation included. I paid. I want to be honest about how that felt. It felt awful. Every second of the transaction felt like something being broken inside me that I was not sure I could fix. I handed over the credits through the exchange terminal, and I watched the cage light go out, and I watched the young Keth step forward onto the open floor, and I thought about all the humans throughout history who had stood on the selling side of something like this, and felt sick and proud at the same time, and I wanted none of that, none of it at all. I just wanted to get this person out of that light cage and away from the sound of the market. Outside the market, in a side corridor that smelled like coolant fluid and recycled air, I stopped walking. The Keth stopped 2 feet behind me, still, waiting. The posture of someone who had been trained by experience to wait and see what came next. I turned around. "My name is Owen," I said. I held out the ownership chip. It was a small flat disc, gray, with my registration code on one side. "This is yours. It says I own you. I don't. I want you to take it and break it." The Keth did not move. Dark eyes. Not frightened, not grateful. Measuring. "Why?" they said. Not a question with a rise at the end. More like a word placed carefully on a table. "Because you're a person," I said. "That's the whole reason." A long silence. In the corridor, a cargo droid trundled past and neither of us moved. "You paid for me," the Keth said. Their galactic standard was precise, clear, accented with something that moved through the consonants like water. "I paid to get you out the door," I said. "That's different." Another silence. Their eyes dropped to the chip in my hand, then back to my face. "You gain nothing," they said. "I know. You risk your license registration. They will flag your account for irregular acquisition if you cannot demonstrate labor purpose." "I know that too. Humans are not permitted to buy and immediately release. It triggers a fraud review. I'll deal with that when it happens." The Keth's head tilted about 2 degrees to the right. Something shifted in their expression. Not trust, not yet. Something more careful than that. A door not opened but perhaps unlocked. They reached out and took the chip, held it between 2 fingers, then pressed down with their thumb, and the chip cracked in half cleanly. They let both pieces fall. "My name is Vel," they said. "We sat in the corridor for over 2 hours. I do not know why. I had a ship to get back to and a contract run to think about. Vel had, technically, a whole galaxy to walk into. Neither of us moved. It started because Vel asked me a question I did not expect. Do you believe the other humans would have done this? I thought about it honestly. Some, I said. Not most. Not because they don't care. Because they would not have known they could. Or they would have thought one person doesn't matter enough. Vel was quiet for a moment. One person is the only number that has ever mattered to me, they said. They did not mean it warmly. They meant it the way you mean, a fact that cost you everything to learn. I asked about their family. I should not have. Vel's face closed like a shutter and then opened again slowly, deliberately, the way you do when you decide to speak something that usually stays locked. My mother was taken to a labor facility on Core Station 3 years ago. She may still be alive. My father was classified as non-cooperative 2 years after the purchase of Kessa. That classification has a standard outcome. Vel said it flatly, without flinching, and that flatness was the most painful thing I had seen in years. I did not say I was sorry. I have never found that word useful in moments like that. I said, "Is there anything I can do about Core Station?" Vel looked at me steadily. "Why would you try?" "Because you were the one in front of me," I said. "And you still are." Something happened in Vel's expression then that I could not name exactly. Not hope. Closer to the feeling you get when you have been wrong about something and the correction arrives. A small recalibration. "There is a contact," Vel said slowly. "A Keth who works here on Verath. Free. He operates a mechanical repair business near docking level 7. He has connections to others. I heard of him before they brought me here. I was going to try to find him before the sale finalized, but I was too closely watched. Then let's find him," I said. We found him in 20 minutes. His name was Kale, and he was covered in machine grease, and he looked at Vel the way people look at someone they thought was gone. No words. He grabbed Vel's shoulders with both hands and held on for a second and then stepped back and looked at me with an expression I could not quite read. "Human," he said, in standard, carefully. "Owen," I said. He nodded. He asked no other questions about me. He turned to Vel, and they spoke in the Keth language, fast and low, and I stood back and let them. After a few minutes, Vel turned to me. "He has names. Places. There are 43 Keth confirmed alive on stations in this sector. 6 of them are registered free. The others are sold or held or listed as unaccounted. That's a starting point," I said. Vel stared at me. "You are not responsible for 43 people, Owen Calloway." "No," I said. "You are. I'm just a hauler with a ship and a contact list and no particular plans for the next several weeks." Kale made a sound that might have been a laugh in another context. We spent another hour with him. He had a network. Small, frightened, careful. People spread across a dozen stations, moving information through the same trade routes that moved everything else. He did not ask for money. He asked for someone willing to carry a data packet on a run to the Drive system and drop it with a contact at Drive Central Port. I had a run to the Drive system. I said yes. Walking back to my ship, Vel stayed 2 steps behind me out of habit, and I slowed until they were beside me. "You do not have to take me anywhere," Vel said. "I know. I can stay with Kale." "You can," I said. "Do you want to?" A pause. We walked. The station hummed around us. Thousands of beings. Business ongoing. The great loud ordinary machinery of galactic commerce. "No," Vel said. "Then you have a bunk on the port side. It folds out from the wall. The food printer is limited, but it covers about 40 species dietary needs according to the manual. I have not tested that claim extensively." Vel said nothing for several steps. Then, "You live alone." "For about 4 years now," I said. "That is a long time." "It is," I agreed. "Humans need social contact to maintain psychological health." I read this in a species overview document during transit. I looked at them sideways. "Are you evaluating my mental state?" Vel's expression moved in a way I was starting to recognize as close to wry. "I am noting data. I'm fine," I said. "You bought a stranger out of a cage and gave up half your liquid reserves and accepted a data run for a resistance network within 2 hours of arriving at this station," Vel said. "The psychological profile this suggests is notable." "Humans are impulsive," I said. "No," Vel said. "Humans are responsive. There is a difference. Impulsive is without thought. You thought. You simply weighted the considerations differently than every other being on that floor." I did not have an answer to that. We walked the rest of the way to the ship in silence. My ship was a Class 4 independent hauler, 22 meters bow to stern, with a hold that smelled permanently of whatever had been in there before I bought it, which I had given up trying to identify. It was not beautiful. It worked. Vel walked up the ramp and stopped inside the hold and looked around with those large dark eyes, and I saw them notice the small details. The photographs pinned to the bulkhead near the cockpit hatch. 4 of them. My sister's family back on Ferris too. A hand-drawn map of a place I had been once that I liked. A small carved wooden bird, very bad craftsmanship, that I had made myself during a long haul and could not bring myself to throw away. They looked at the bird for a long moment. "I made it," I said, embarrassed. "It's bad." "It is a bird," Vel said. "From Earth, yes. I have seen images." "A sparrow," I said. "Or my attempt at one." Vel reached out and touched it with one finger, very lightly. "The Keth made carvings," they said, "from the mineral deposits in the cave walls. Figures of animals, of each other. We had 40,000 years of carvings." A pause. "Most of them are dust now." I could not speak for a moment. "Not all of them," I said finally. "Kale is still here. You're still here." Vel's hand dropped back to their side. They turned to face me. There was something in their eyes now that had not been there in the corridor outside the market. Not happiness, something older and quieter than happiness. "You are a strange creature, Owen Calloway," they said. "Most humans are," I said. "You'll get used to it." We launched from Verath 30 minutes later. As I ran the pre-jump checks and Vel sat in the co-pilot's seat without being asked, I thought about the trade commission flag on my account. I thought about the fraud review. I thought about the data packet now sitting in my ship's secondary drive, carrying names and locations and small coded hopes for people scattered across a sector. I thought about Vel's mother on Core Station, and whether she was still alive, and what a hauler with a flexible schedule and a ship that fit in places larger vessels could do about that. The jump drive charged with its familiar low hum. "Jump in 40 seconds, I said. "I have never been in a human ship before," Vel said. "How is it?" They considered this with visible seriousness. "Smaller than expected, more photographs than expected. The wooden bird is unexpected entirely. And overall?" The jump clock ticked to 10 seconds. "Acceptable," Vel said, and the way they said it, quiet and with something careful underneath, meant more than the word. We jumped. I do not know what we started at Verath Station. I am a cargo hauler. I am not a revolutionary and I am not a soldier, and I have no funding and no fleet and no political standing anywhere in the galaxy. I have a ship and a contact list and Vel in the seat beside me, and a data packet to deliver, and a lead on a station where someone's mother might still be alive. The galaxy is very large and very old, and most of its rules were written by people who benefited from the rules, and it has been running this way for longer than my species has been watching stars. But every one of those rules started as a decision made by someone. And every rule that has ever changed started with someone deciding to make a different decision. I did not come to Varath to change anything. I came for a pressure valve and 2 coils of thermal wire, neither of which I remembered to buy. Somewhere behind us in the dark between stars, Kale was making a call. Somewhere further away, 43 people who did not know my name yet were going about the daily business of surviving. Vel reached forward and adjusted the navigation display with a calm, practiced gesture, as though they had always sat in that seat. I did not say anything about it. I just let them. The stars outside the viewport were long, white lines of light, and we were moving, and ahead of us was the drive system, and after that something else, and after that something else again, and I was starting to think that this was going to take considerably longer than 40 minutes. That was all right. I had time.